You hear that sound? That is the beautiful music of 6 brand new Vipers about to go on the racetrack here in Northern California. And here's a question for you. What is shorter, the brand new 2013 Viper or Porsche 911? The answer coming up next on the Fast Lane Car. Oh yeah, I get to drive it too. To answer my question, the Porsche is the larger car, at least longer. And you can certainly tell when you get in the Viper because it is tight in here. If you look where I'm sitting and I'm as far down as you can be, I am looking right out at the roofline. So in order for me to drive this car, I have to kind of squint down to get a full view of the road. Ever since the first generation, the Viper has always been about raw speed. And until this generation, the Viper has always been crude and rude in a lot of ways. I mean, you've got side pipes instead of rear exhaust. In the previous generations, you had basically a Dodge interior. With this one, it's much nicer. You feel like you're in a car that is worth, well, I'm not sure $120,000, but certainly worth at least $100,000. There is nice, fine leather everywhere you touch. The seats are actually sourced from the same company that builds the seats for Ferraris. And you still have that essence of power and of rawness that you want in a car that hasn't been domesticated. If a Viper were a woman, this would be your mistress, because this is probably not the kind of girl you want to take to the chapel, but it certainly is the kind of girl you want to take out for a weekend. Oh yeah. And just put the pedal to the metal. Alright, it's what's under the hood that makes the Viper so special. And as before, the hood release is on the outside. Or do you say bonnet? Here we have, get this, an 8.4 liter V10 that puts out 640 horsepower and 600 pound-feet of torque. If you let it, it will tear the rear 19-inch tires off the wheels all day long.
Our customers, as Maurice will attest to, like to fiddle with their cars. So they like to add superchargers or nitrous or turbos, all this crazy stuff to get more power like they need it. And you like it to be as robust as possible. So we had cast pistons in the old Gen 4 engine that were very good pistons for castings, but they weren't as robust as forging, obviously. So we worked with our supplier, Mala, on the pistons, came up with a forging that we actually used in the ACR race cars, ACR X class, and it's a very, very robust design.
There's only one transmission option, and that's a 6-speed manual. And having driven this Viper, I can tell you it's very precise and it's very easy to shift. Considering that you have 640 horsepower, you'd think that the car would try to rip your arm off, but it doesn't. If you use a nice firm hand, you can find the right gear every time.
The entire upper body is essentially aerospace grade materials. The hood, and we've returned to a clamshell hood, all 100% hand laid out aerospace grade carbon fiber. The roof, inner, outer, all 100% aerospace carbon.
All right guys, 0 to 60, real world testing now. The Viper has launch control, but it's wet, and the Chrysler guy said not to do it in the wet. So we're gonna do it the old fashioned way. Keep in mind, there's 2 of us in the car. We are at sea level, here we go. I'm just gonna launch it. Oh, a lot of wheel spin. Oh yeah, there we go. That's 60. And that was the first time I've done that. 5.09. 5.09. That was just an impromptu 0 to 60 run. This car will go much faster, I'm sure of it, because first of all, there's 2 of us in here, and secondly, that was the first time I've done that. Now imagine if I was able to use the launch control, what that could do. It would be substantially faster. Now in the old Viper, sitting on the sill would be impossible because all that exhaust comes out right here, and believe me, it's loud, it's fast, and it's furious. I'm talking about the exhaust, not the car. It does get warm, but it doesn't become intrusive or uncomfortable. I think they've done a much better job in managing the heat that this engine puts out because, let's face it, side exhausts are cool, but they are not practical, unless of course you're in a race car, which this basically is.
My favorite part of the new car is the steering. It's much more precise, much more linear, quicker. So if in the event that you do have a little slippage, you can correct very, very quickly, which I like a lot. The car has the largest rubber of any supercar in the world. The tire type, we worked with Pirelli and they really came to the party with a nice tire for us. Actually 2 tires, the Corsa and the P0. They really are tuned for this car.
Now the new Viper has a top speed, get this, of 206 miles an hour. And to haul the car down from that kind of velocity, you need big brakes, and you get them. You get Brembos that are vented, they're slotted, well, they're red, and they're massive.
You'll see today when you sit in the driver's seat looking at this floor, I just love this shape here. It's just the coolest thing. And I often talk about washing a car. I love washing cars, especially cars like this. And that was one of the things. I actually got to take one home a few months ago, and I literally spent an hour just washing the car and drying it. And it ended up getting wrecked too. It was an impact car. I think it was the cleanest impact car around. But it was cool. It was like an emotional experience to be able to wash this car. But just the shape, the subtleties that you'll see in it, little flicks here that help exhaust air out from the engine. We have thought and designed everything on this car. I can't emphasize that enough, that even the details, you'll see the snakeskin pattern in the textures here. You'll see it in the tail lamps as well, and it repeats itself in the gill.
Now the interior is an interesting mishmash of fine Italian design, and I say that because Chrysler, which is owned by Fiat, consulted Ferrari when they did this interior. But at the same time, you've got the center stack with that navigation screen, which looks like, because it is, out of a Dodge Dart, and the steering wheel controls, well, if you've owned any Chrysler product, you'll be very familiar with those. Now the guys at Chrysler will tell you they benchmark cars like the Audi R8, think of the V10 of course, the Porsche 911, and don't forget the Corvette ZR1. Unlike the Audi and the Porsche, since this is a front engine car, there is quite a bit of room back here, so you can put a set of golf clubs in there. I think even Nathan might fit if he were here. I wanted to do much of this review behind the steering wheel, but honestly, it's too tight, too loud, and just too raw to do that. So yes, they've civilized the Viper to some degree, but don't get me wrong, this is a track toy. Think of it as a giant go-kart with a massively big engine. So coming up next in the Fast Lane car, let's check out how it does in its natural environment, the racetrack. As always, this is Roman reporting for TFL Car. See you guys next time, and don't forget to subscribe for a new video every day. This right here is the very first Viper. In fact, it was introduced in 1989. This is the first mule. Today, at Sonoma Raceway, I got to drive the brand new 2013 Viper with Ralph Gilles, the guy who heads up the SRT group at Chrysler. Check it out next on the Fast Lane Car.